All right, welcome everybody. Today we have Niyati Shah here to be able to talk to us a little bit today around how AI is really affecting or making changes in the way that we think about pricing and the way that we're using it in our tech stack, how we're doing billing, how we're thinking it in our business. So Niyati, maybe just give a quick introduction about yourself and a bit of your background.
Sure. So hi everyone. My name is Niyati Shah. I'm a business and finance strategy leader and pricing leader for over 15 years now, with a lot of different Fortune 500 companies. Cisco, Intel in the past, GE Digital, Logitech, most recently at Synopsys. I have been really fortunate to get a chance to work on a very different business areas, learn from different transformation of the businesses, from hardware businesses to software, from software businesses to how do you drive from perpetual to subscription to consumption based, right? And now, how do we drive this AI centric, monetization and this AI centric era. So that's just in a nutshell about me. I'm very passionate into the business, pricing, and monetization topics. And LogiSense I have introduced in last year. I have attended the Usage Economy Summit, and the discussion has been great, and we are continuing that. So thank you, LogiSense team, and looking forward to share my experience and insight.
Awesome. Maybe we kind of get started. I think one of the big hot topics in AI is around it being able to gain insights on your own data, right? And things that you might not have been able to dig up before. And with everybody being data driven and these sorts of things, what are you seeing around companies using this data and AI around real-time adjustments or these sorts of things to their pricing models and how they're using it?
Yeah, so the AI centric, the AI insights, right? And again, just a quick recap, right now, as I mentioned about that, the AI I mentioned earlier is that the AI, one of the most important financial lever that's going through disruption is pricing, and that is with AI, right? And then the prevalent nature of AI into different industry, whether it's a finance, whether it's healthcare, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's IT, etc., right? One thing that I have realized is that, while companies are really understanding the true value proposition, there is this huge CapEx and OpEx investment and cost too, whether it's infrastructure or whether it's a training the models or whether it's, recruiting people, etc. So going back to your point of, how do you look at the data and data inside? It is different with different companies, in all honesty. We have disjointed system and infrastructure more often so than not. And so also, while we are looking at historical data or historical kind of transactions, multi-year contracts, we also want to look at what type of decisions that we want to drive, right? And what type of the appetite the companies have across changing the pricing or the operating models, right? Because in my experiences, there are a lot of time that the financial system is SAP, then we use Salesforce, and then Salesforce does not have all of those transactions. Certain things are directly booked into SAP. In that type of a thing, how do you make a meaningful data centric decisions, right? That is a bigger problem to solve, but on a smaller level, what type of decisions that we want to drive from those data and take a smaller actions and then take a shorter term impact and longer term impact, maybe a right way to go about it.
And are you seeing Are there areas of like that are favored or prioritized over others? Is it things like churn reduction, or is it, expense optimization, or what do you see, people really kind of pointing these models at, and what problems are they trying to solve immediately within their own business, right? And the data that they have from those different systems.
Yeah, so and again, companies are at a different type of their journey, right? Some are really scratching the surface with this. The most traditional of the matrix that you want to see is like customer acquisition cost, customers lifetime value, customer churn rate. Right now you talk about churn rate as reading like there are a lot of AI chatbots, right? And one of them, which really was interesting to me, is the customer engagement or customer success AI, like Gainsight. What they do is they really understand what is how do we drive more customer engagement, and then you can have customer satisfaction, right? So that you can have higher renewal rate, lower churn rate, you can have higher subscription. So in those type of a thing, right? Like how do you drive meaningful data? So the AI chatbot can be a right type of technology, and maybe a hybrid type of a pricing model. So as your customer usages goes higher, the AI can keep giving you the type of insight that, hey, now the customers can go into the higher tier. So the hybrid of usage and subscription can be a right type of pricing method to use for. But going back to your question, different companies are at a different level of their journey and using it on a different way of the traditional pricing matrix, right? Like ARR or MRR. Renewal is something that I have seen. A lot of time what happens is renewal with a multi-year contracts, and those multi-year contracts have uh, pre-negotiated items, especially with multi-million dollars, right? So now after 3 years from now, what what would be the right pricing? Should be baked in inflation, right? Also, what is that negotiation things in the play? What are the competitive, because from 3 years from now to 3 years back to now, market has changed, it's evolved, right? So there are a lot more variables into play, and those variables can have a deeper impact, is what I have seen. So I don't have like a linear answer for you, but I've seen mix of all.
Well, I think it's interesting. We've had a few different peer groups that we've been chatting a little bit about this. And, the question is, okay, so you've got all of this data and you have this ability to gain these insights. And one of the interesting things when we asked the group is like, well, it was along prompt engineering. Well, what would you ask the system to know, right? And beyond the traditional, everybody, oh, well, here's my churn report, here's this report. They're thinking traditional reports and stuff. I think one
Yes.
of the challenges is the thinking around the prompt engineering and how can you pull out insights that you never really had access to before. But if you have the right question and the right
Correct.
way to your model, you could get those insights that you don't think that you could get. So it's curious to see everyone going, oh, I don't know, what would I ask the system, right?
And what are the capabilities, right? Like, you want to go from this descriptive type of models to more predictive type of model, to your point, right? And then that can open up the new revenue stream, right? So one of the example is that, we always have given like, okay, this is the quantity, this is the price point, this is like the tier, that's it. Now, what if we want to create like off the shelf packages, right? And then tell customers that, hey, we do have this, you may not have this problem, but if you do so, then these are just off the shelf, ready to go. You don't have to give us a lot of input, but you give us like 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of a use cases or problem statement, and we give you off the shelf package that solve not just 4 but 6 more things, right? And it can continue help you improve or train your model, right? And that can be the new revenue stream. But whether should we invest into it. You don't know. And but if you do, then that can be a future opportunity too. So then moving away from those, historically we have done this, so in future it can be this, to, hey, historically we have done this, but based on this criteria, we have potential to do a lot more, and this is the prediction that we can do. And if you do that, you have this many probability, right? So instead of doing linear regression, maybe you do Gaussian regression, where you can have multiple variables, multiple data points, right? So it can, the technology is there where it can allow you to put more variables, more complexity into it, and get the more deeper analysis and more deeper understanding and opportunities as well.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the challenges where, when we pose that question and people are thinking the traditional way of doing things, it comes into, okay, well, how can AI help me is the one thing that people are thinking about. Then the AI products that I'm offering and I'm putting them in front of my potential customers, how do I describe the value that they can bring to them, and how am I going to price it to them so that they feel that they're getting value from my product, right? Like, and it's because everyone's in that traditional, a per seat this or a per, whatever, a monthly fee or these sorts of things. Now, is that going to give me value? And on the other end of the line, it's like, well, I don't know what I should be asking. I don't know what kind of value I'm going to get from it. I can see the potential, but how, like, what are you seeing for people thinking about, how do I now price my products around these types of outcomes and ways that it can benefit the business?
Yeah, and I think a lot of companies are into the same boat as you have mentioned, right? Like, oh, how do I do it? And there is not a straight things that you can see in the market, right? Because if you look at Copilot, right, they have this user base, right, where they have a different type of a tiers. One is for enterprise, one is for per user, from $10 to $100 or things like that. Versus the Open AI is kind of this user base where you can have number of tokens and you can pay, right, based on this fixed token. So they are not user based, they are token based, they are consumption based, where if you see Weblo, things like that, those are a lot of time the still the freemium type of model, that, hey, try it for 60 days or things like that. So you can see all this different type of a pricing phenomena. And I think my takeaway is look at the direct and indirect monetization, right? Like how ultimately its AI features are impacting your customers and providing the value. Now, if the value is that, hey, this is an add-on in our existing solutions or offering, and then that becomes the very cohesive package for customers to use and leverage and get the value extract out of it, then it's kind of an indirect, right? And that indirect is part of your value packaging, versus, hey, this is our AI solutions, and this AI solutions can help you, as I said earlier, customer engagement, right, or customer skill scoring, or it has a direct impact or value to it. It becomes a direct monetization, and you need to start that way. But that's how I see it. But the lines do get blurry time to time, because then at some point of time you can see that, hey, now over the period the AI is much more value impacting than my existing product bucket. And you may have to do conjoint analysis, you have to do pricing elasticity and a lot more things like that. But yeah, that's also one of the things where AI impact is pretty huge into your overall monetization.
Yeah, and I think we just finished doing a survey. It was about 300 different companies, and the products that they're selling, it was almost like a 50-50 split. Half of them said, well, we're just including it as part of our core offering and it increases the value of our offering. The other half said, yeah, we're charging over and over top net new, product add-ons and being able to charge for it. And the challenge in both of those scenarios was really around the infrastructure cost that sits underneath to be able to provide the output that was underneath that, right? And so some of the ones that have been looking at the tokenization side of things have been trying to use that from an abstraction there. And I'm not sure if you can do you have a kind of insights on kind of the pros and cons and things you might have seen around like tokenization and, you know, kind of more virtual value, and then how many of those that you get for a certain price? Just curious on your insights there.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, right now, so, just a little bit rewind, right? Even in the SaaS world or, subscription world, you can see, Salesforce CRM as an example, charge $25 per user, right? Simple model, or AWS charges, on a gigabyte basis on a consumption for their S3 bucket as an example. So underneath that, both of this, it is, pretty flexible, right? As you scale, you can go higher. There is no upfront cost, right? And then there is no, and you can scale pretty easily. So it was very easy for the software companies, right, to adopt to this. Um, Versus and Netflix is like subscription model, right? But then YouTube is per ad model, right? So both of their their own type of operating structure, infrastructure. Now a lot of B2B companies are kind of in the mix, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, we do have a lot of capex and opex investment with AI that necessitate to understand the longer term benefit or ROI impact. And to your point, whether how do we determine tokens, right? Now you can just have like a direct cost of, hey, this token gets this much charge per API calls, is an example. But there is also beneath that, hey, what is that fully burdened cost? And that answer is different, and complexity is different based on the different operating models. And also you have to determine the cost curve, right? Because you can have initial infrastructure cost, but as the scale builds up, your cost can go down. But then at the same time, how do you drive more of that tokens, right? And do you only want to have token, but then you can want to add solutions or anything subscription layer on top of it too. So yeah, makes it the capex and opex infrastructure with AI a huge investment bucket. It becomes very hard to really understand the end to end cost deployment and understanding of cost. So companies are starting to kind of charging per user, per consumption, per token, free at time to time, but it's still in a phase to really understand the longer term impact, the cost and benefit out of it.
Yeah, I think we've seen situations where we work with clients that use token based, right? And it's almost two separate steps of usage calculation, because you can do tokens and you get X per thousand of tokens, and you can tier them and you can pool them and you can do all the things with the tokens. But then their challenge themselves, like you're saying, is they're still understanding their infrastructure costs and what calculates a token. How much CPU, how much storage, how much this, how much whatever should calculate. And some models are more expensive to train and maintain than others. And which way does it direct? And how do you calculate how many tokens somebody used based off of a prompt, right? So there's almost like these two layers of calculations, of one of value and then the other of pricing on top of value. So, and that's where some are going, well, let's just do subscription. Let's take a look at what our average cost looks like, and then let's figure out some of those things from there.
Exactly. And in that sense, the user base makes more sense, that, as you said, that take the averages, build some margins, and then you can have per user pricing. And then, if you want more licenses, right, like do the group license, etc. But, you really want to, you think that user will not work, then let's understand the consumption and the tokens. But then in that, understanding infrastructure cost, overall it becomes a little complex problem. Well, OpenAI does it by tokens, and but more so or not, what I have seen is user base is quite more popular versus the token base. And one of the reason is that really understanding the cost impact.
And I'll put you on the spot here, see if you have maybe some advice, because a lot of companies that we're talking to, right, that are VC backed, right, investment backed, everybody absolutely wants to see AI in those product suites, and they're excited about that from an investment standpoint. But traditionally, your valuation was, I'm going to put air quotes around, predictable on your subscriptions per month. Yeah, you have a certain amount of churn and these sorts of things. And I think the idea of having a variable type of revenue stream that's based off of whether it's tokens or usage or these sorts of things can become a little bit, not scary, but a little bit harder for an investor to go, well, what's my guaranteed, what does my ramp look like, what does my profitability look like, because I'm used to seeing these numbers this way. I'm just wondering if you have any advice for anybody that's talking to their investors or VCs that are coming from that standpoint, and on strategies or these sorts of things they can do and how they price. Maybe it's a hybrid model to show some consistency plus overage. Just wondering if you have a little bit of advice for anybody that's in those sorts of scenarios.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you heard a few months back, I think there was a meme or something on LinkedIn that, hey, Satya Nadella mentioned that now the MRR and ARR is dying, because those are the metrics, right? That, Wall Street likes it, the investor likes it, because it is, to your point, is give you the assurance, right? The recurring by nature, right? You can have a sustainability and you can predict those revenue as well, right? Now with kind of a disruption with the AI for past 2 years, I don't know. So, we don't know if we do have the newly defined industry-wide kind of a new matrix, because uh, if it is per user or if it is token example, right, it's still transaction at the end of the day, right? So you are not driving that subscription, the annual subscription or multi-year subscription or per month type of a subscription, right? That has the stickiness, that has the predictable revenue. As you mentioned earlier, like hybrid would be a good kind of a balance where hey, you can say this is per user as an example, but at the same time, we do have some type of a revenue stream baked into it, and we do have a historical data that on an average we do have a ballpark of 80-90% of the users are renewing, right? Our churn rate is lower, and as AI adoption is more and more in our packaging, we can see a higher usage of our features, and then we can, using the combination of usage, we can have a combination of subscription, and we can have a combination of, hey, this is our historical say, and we are confident that our churn rate is 20% or 30% or something like that. So the combination of multiple data points to give the full picture to investor would be a good steps, right? So instead of just saying the MRR as 80% or something like that, you can say that, hey, my this is this, my subscription is this, my usage is this, my customers are this, my MRR, and with that, I think in next 6 months this is going to look like, and by the way, my AI features is also have a higher traction and higher usage.
Gotcha. And so like that, would that be kind of the framework that you would consider as this would be the strategy for you to figure out your AI pricing, or are there anything other on top of that, or like figuring out like your value metric and these sorts of things, on what kind of strategy that you would use around figuring out exactly what that would be, and what am I going to put that consumption based price on, right?
Yeah. So this we are also in the mix of a lot of transformation, right? So as I mentioned, lot more dynamic pricing as well, right? Where you have a constant changes in the market, as you are saying, geopolitical situations, right? That makes the tariff situations very unpredictable, right? Your cost of inventory may go up or down, or the cost of procuring things, right? Or the supply chain optimization can go up, down. So based on that, you may need to constantly reevaluate your cost, and cost impact the pricing as well, right? Or a lot more companies do not want a static subscription or user pricing, or within even subscription, you can constantly change that, right, based on consumption criteria, or something like Uber, right? Your pricing is changed based on the timing of the day, the destination, the supply and demand of the driver or customer. If there is a special event, I see even in the airline tickets right now, they charge based on the tickets, and based on when you are actually buying. So in B2C is a lot more dynamic type of an environment too. And I think with AI, I predict that a lot more trend like that can happen into traditional B2B SaaS, especially software industry as well, where the value proposition can change from customer to customer, right? So it can be more value based, more personalized type of, more dynamic type of a price point too, where hey, I give you 80% of the value of the software, but does not mean that I gave the same 80% to customer C or customer D. And so that's why, the maybe Gaussian regression, where you can have multiple data points, and then you can also predict what can impact to my sales if my price point changes from here to there. So having like those customer segmentation becomes a lot more important. Having the multiple variables is also a lot more important. So um, yeah, I at least foresee that a lot more dynamic element will come to B2B pricing as well, along with traditional price points, pricing schemes that we have seen.
Yeah, and I guess the challenge in that is, how do you keep your catalog fairly simple as far as people to understand what your offerings are, but then the ability to personalize that as you see fit to win the deal, especially in the B2B space, right? That not rigid pricing, that's give them a framework and how we can figure out how we're going to provide the value to them. Because like you said, they might see value in one portion of the software where another customer sees value in another area. And how do we price accordingly for that?
Yeah, and in that case, maybe the AI technology can really help also enable the sales team, right? So where you don't may not have like a standard price list for everybody, right? The AI, customer engagement, customer success tools can actually extract the data or historical from your own historical data from that customer, and see what they have priced, I mean what they have paid in the past, right? So your ASP, and then they can what type of a product that they have purchased, right? So in the toolkit, that you can see that this is their customer history, this is what the market is offering right now, this is what our competitors are, and this is what the customer need, and based on this need, this is the right type of a value proposition or bundle for that customer, right? And maybe for a long tail customer you can have some standardization, but for your high end, or which makes your 80% of revenue, you may need to have this type of a customized kind of solutions or the pricing.
Well, and that's just even if the value, even if you're not pricing based off of a usage or consumption based thing, having the data of how they're using your product, what features are they using day to day, how are they doing
Exactly.
stuff, right, is so valuable for you at the time, especially when it comes to renewal, right? Or they're 6 months from renewal and you're seeing that they're not using this one area. Well, if your pitch comes out with a high price on that area that they're not using on the software, then you're not likely to get your renewal. So that data is key.
Exactly. And not just that, for product development too, right? Like one product have 20 features, and you see that, hey, 70% of my customer is using only 5 features and not. Then, how do you balance out that and just focus on those while adopting the new technologies, right? So as you said, those type of a data and how customer are consuming it becomes really, really key. Other thing that what I've seen is that some type of a credit based model, right? So under the hood of credit, you can use the different type of products, right? And this within our product catalog, and then there can be a price point within those products. Now customer has a flexibility to choose Well, as long as you do a minimum commitment with companies, right? And customers can try and do the different flavors where they are not sure, should I buy this or should I buy that, right? So that credit based approach can also be great, but in that you have to be careful that you have an infrastructure again in the place where you don't have a disjointed thing where you don't know customer has paid me, but I don't know which product of that they are using, right? So because in that way, eh, system A is not talking to system B. SAP is just recording the overall commitment of the customer or what customer paid, but they don't know which product that they have consumed.
And I think we've been seeing that gain a lot more popularity, right? It's called credit-based or consumption drawdown. We've seen it called before as well, right? Because at the end of the day, the business wants to know, I'm spending $10,000 with you a month. That is what I've agreed to spend with you. You're offering me 17 different services, and I don't know just how much of every single one that I'm going to use, but I do want to try and use those different ones that are in there. And what we've seen with customers is that it gives a really nice vehicle to introduce net new products into that bundle without having to go back and repaper a new deal to try one of the new different pieces that are in there. So it's an interesting one, and it's a neat way of being able to then introduce some AI products inside of those things to be able to get some value from them.
Yes, yes, yes. And I would love to learn from you is, in that, how do you make sure that if you have 1,000 customers, you have a right type of a usage, history built for each of them when you have 15 different services within this big bundle contract and you have thousands of them, right? And what if customer ended that midterm, right? A customer do not want to renew it or whatever reason. So you manage that constant, updates from the customers, and the customer usage.
Exactly. And that you need to make sure that you've got good detailed records coming in real time on what's being used from that, and be able to do things like threshold notifications. You're 75% of your usage for the month on this. You need to either slow down or happy to contract more with you, right?
Yes.
Having a system in place that can kind of pull and be able to keep track all of that is paramount. Otherwise, you just don't know, right? It's great to set up, but you don't know if you're going underwater with it or if you're actually making money off it unless you're metering it properly.
Also, you also have to educate your customer. So the customer becomes like, you are like kind of a, not just advocate, but like a overarching recommender that, hey, you are using this, but by the way, you can use all of this too. So, start using that, or hey, can we upsell to this, right? And, that customer relationship also becomes really, really important. And then your solution can be in customer workflow, customer starts monitoring, using it, and that's where it becomes like a win-win situation, right? So, the third party companies like LogiSense in this, right, who I think are masters of creating or developing the platform architecture like this, right, with different type of systems to keep track of customer usages of your different product portfolio within your overall contract, also I think becomes a key to make the overall customer satisfaction by driving the revenue optimization.
Absolutely. It just gives you a lot of different levers around customer satisfaction, right? It's like, hey, look, I noticed you're not using much of this. Could I put you on a lower plan from that? Or you're doing overage on this, maybe we can change, the rates and we renegotiate kind of our pricing on how we do this so that they continue to see value and don't go, oh, well, I'm spending X a month and I don't feel as getting value from it. That visibility to your customer on the bill is really important. Going, oh, look at this. We're really using this. We see a lot of value in this because we know every finance leader right now is going back to every single one of their teams and saying, what subscriptions and what software and what pieces could we cut out that we don't really need and we don't see value in, right? And so that clear view of what you're using and how much of it that you're using really helps give you that sense of value from a customer standpoint.
Exactly. And then, it can drive the longer term relationship too, right? And then, if you want to add the services layer on top of the subscription, right? It becomes much easier, right? That, hey, we can help you enable your software integration. So, you can start leveraging it from day one, and you don't have to, spend another time within your internal infrastructure to start utilizing. You can do it from day one. So yeah, there can be a lot of benefits, right? With it just all depends on how your operating business model is, what is your appetite to make that changes, right? How easy for your customers also to adopt to these changes, right? And on top of all this, different turmoil that's happening, and believe it or not, it directly impacts your pricing and costing, right? So it's an interesting time right now.
Absolutely. Well, is there any final thoughts that you'd like to leave us with?
It has been great discussion. I was reading an article from Accenture, and they did the interview with the 500 CEOs, and they said 73% of the CEOs on their mind is right now, how do you drive the maximum revenue optimization of their AI products and features, and while keeping the customers happy, and what are the longer term ROI of the investment that they are making. So to our point, which we started with, that the rampant proliferation of AI makes it inevitable that we need to start, thinking and exercising a new muscle in terms of the AI monetization. There are a lot of different type of models that we see, which is extension of the subscription or the user or the gigabyte pricing, like hybrid model, more dynamic model, more personalized type of a pricing that we see, keeping the cost end to end in mind is also absolutely important while you are deciding your right type of monetization strategy.
Gotcha. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining today. Really enjoyed the conversation with you. And with that, we'll sign off today and say thanks to everybody for joining.